We're going to take you on a journey.
Look, to be honest, there was 2 days I laid on my bathroom floor.
I can't believe I'm crying already.
So I can't imagine the grief of a parent who loses a child.
And you be the greatest version of you, then I feel like my work is done.
Hi, I'm Tam Wrigley and welcome to the Beyond Beautiful journey. Often we're stuck in a job purely for financial security and it doesn't light our fire or serves our purpose. That's where our guest found herself 15 years ago, and one little comment from her husband changed her path forever and led her to where she is today. She's had highs, she's suffered lows, she's suffered loss and heartbreak, yet she has come through shining and now is the food editor at 9Honey. Welcome to the couch, Jane. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing with this series. It's absolutely beautiful. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
I loved you sent me a bit of an intro on you about how you yourself switch off from social media. So you actually delete, which I just thought was amazing.
And I blame my husband for this, right? Because it was getting in the way of our life. I work in media all day, every day. I look at Instagram all the time. I'm constantly on Facebook. It's where we find a lot of our stories. It's where we share a lot of opinions and gather other people's opinions. And it was quite seriously, and I'm devastated that I have to admit this to anybody, because I thought I had it under control. And then I realised I really didn't. Like I honestly didn't. I would disappear into the bathroom and then stay in there for an extra 5 minutes, just standing in front of the mirror, scrolling through my phone. And I'd come out and my husband would be like, Where have you been? Like, seriously, didn't hear the shower running, sort of thing. And I knew I was in trouble when my now 7-year-old looked at me one day and he was like, get off Instagram, mummy. And when your child says that to you, you go, okay, one, he's heard his dad say it to me too often, and two, it's the truth. And what am I missing?
Yeah, you said a comment like there was quite a big conversation that your husband had with you.
Yeah.
What can you?
Okay, so there's been a couple. It started with we would go out to dinner, and because I write about food, I take my phone with me. I take lots of pictures. I take pictures of the menu, pictures of the food, all that kind of stuff, just for my own use. And it started quite a while ago now, and we would sit down at dinner, and if it wasn't related to work, if we were just out at dinner, he would go, give me your phone. And I would freak out.
It's like cutting your right arm off.
Yeah, no, why? Well, you don't need my phone. He was like, well, you're not documenting anything tonight. Give me your phone. And he wouldn't just take it and like put it face down on the table. He'd take it away.
Wow.
And just be like, I just want to be here with you, and I want to know that you're not thinking about all the things that this could be, and just be here in the moment. And I did get used to that, and I got better at not even getting my phone out if it wasn't work-related and all that kind of stuff. But I was getting so wound up on weekends with trying to catch up with everything and make sure I was across everything that I would get like anxious and sad looking at Instagram. And I know how it works. I know that it's a curated look at people's lives. I do it all the time, but that doesn't stop it affecting you, and it can affect you quite deeply. And I would wake up in the morning happy as anything, look at my wonderful life that we've worked very hard to create, beautiful children, wonderful husband. 10 minutes into Instagram, feel like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not getting up and going out. I'm not taking a sunrise photo. I'm not doing all these things. And he could see me getting anxious. And so it was his suggestion to delete the app from my phone over the weekend. He was like, I get that you need it for work.
Yep.
And it's a wonderful tool and it's lots of fun. But if you can't regulate it yourself, take the temptation away.
Yep.
And we had a fight about it. I was like, I've deleted it off my phone. He goes, you've deleted it off that phone, but I know you've got another phone, and it's still on that phone.
You've got a spare
one. I had like
stashed.
multiple phones. This sounds like terrible addiction, doesn't it? But I had multiple phones. I had a work phone and a private phone, and I deleted it off one and not the other, just in that minute when, if they've gone to the shops, I'll just check Instagram. And he was like, just get rid of it. And it was hard.
It's an addiction.
It's a proper addiction. Especially, I knew I had a real problem when I closed the app one day and instantly opened it again.
Yeah.
Just as a reflex. And then I was like, hang on a second, what am I doing? And so I had a break from work in January, and Ash said to me, just delete it off everything and leave it off for the whole week, not just the weekend.
Wow.
Leave it off for the whole week. I went to the beach by myself and I rang him and I was like, what do I do?
I'm bored.
I said, what do I do? And he goes, you put your phone down and you look at the sky and listen to the waves. And it took a couple of days, but then I was like, I've got this. And as long as you make that decision and go with it, it's so refreshing. And then when you come back, there's stuff you haven't seen and it's interesting again and it's funny again.
But do you go back to that whole, the fear of I've missed out?
I did at first, and now I know myself that there's so much stuff going on all the time that even if you're looking at it all the time, you're still missing stuff anyway. So you might as well get used to it and just be like, all right, well, I'm going to choose the times when I'm doing this and not do it as a reflex, which I was really into, like reflex zone.
You'd be amazed, I think, how many hours you could just sit there and scrolling through.
Have you seen the apps on your phone that tell you how much time you've spent?
No, I won't look.
Don't look, because I looked and my husband was like, see, Instagram? Look at that. And I was like, whoa.
And then you've stopped looking at Instagram, and then you're on Facebook. Yeah. And then you go back to Instagram.
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook, but it's also on Instagram. And because, you know, they're not that diverse that you would really be seriously missing out if you didn't look. So it was hard. I'm really glad I did it. And I think it just made it really evident to me that I had a proper problem.
Yeah. And
I was like, no, I can switch this off any time. And it's really addictive.
To set a challenge.
Yeah, I see how long I can go for.
Oh, but like to Australia.
Yeah.
Do like the, you know, blackout social media on the weekend challenge.
I saw this great, I love memes because they're clever wordplay. And so that's one of the reasons I'm a bit of addicted to social media, because there's, you know, great memes. And one of the really funny ones I saw recently was, imagine that Instagram ceased to exist and boom, you were no longer a model. And I was like, wow, that's how a lot of people feel. They're like, they feel that they're validated by this thing, and if it's taken away.
Or they're validated by the likes and the comments, and, you know, that's like that's what they look at. They post a photo and it's, oh, how many likes did I get? How many comments did I get? How engaging was that post?
And so go and have a chat to someone. That's validating too. Yeah. And I can say that because I was in that hole and not that long ago, like earlier this year. And I've pulled myself out now, and I can go for whole days, believe it or not, without looking at Instagram or social media now. But I had to actively take control of it. Yeah. Because it makes you anxious, and it makes you sad, and it stops you appreciating the things that you have. Because I think that what everyone forgets, and I've seen it with my sister because she has bipolar, and so she is not on social media very much because she doesn't cope with it very well. And I thought I was coping with it fine, but even I was having problems with it. And I can remember saying to her when she was finding it was giving her anxiety, I said to her, you do realise not everyone's on holidays. They just look like they're on holidays because we're only posting a picture of the good stuff. Yeah, yeah. And I knew that, and I would say that to her and still not take it on myself. Yeah. So I think people forget that. And if you just took snapshots of your own life and really curated it and put it on Instagram, your life would look pretty fabulous, you know, because most of us have beautiful things in our lives, people that we love, things that we do, pretty bowls of funny food. Like you can make your life look amazing, but do you want to spend all that time curating that rather than just enjoying it?
There seems to be a trend now on social media that these people that have put themselves out there, you know, as this reality, are now switching it around to then now talking openly about how they suffered anxiety, the depression, and it seems to be a shift now that it's coming back to, or let's talk about how sad we really are, or how depressed we really are, or how anxious, and they're just...
Which I think is good, because that discussion absolutely needs to be had, especially if people are putting one image out there when really they're struggling with their own internal demons. I think having that discussion is so important. But I worry that sometimes it's misused and that it's just a way of, especially with the body positive ones, there's a couple of people that I adore. Lindy Cohen, I'm looking at you. She does great body positive stuff. She's a nutritionist and she does the thing where she shows you the Instagram posed shot and then the reality.
Wow.
Okay, the same thing. And that is incredibly empowering. But I do find that there are other accounts that just use talking about body positivity as an excuse to post a highly curated picture anyway, and just that. And they're like, oh, look at all my flaws. I'm like, you don't have any flaws. And that skews it as well. So it's great that we're having those discussions, but then I watch it being, you know, and that's the way it's going too now as well. So I'm such a fence sitter on this one because I love social media, but I hate social media, and I think it's great, and I think it's the devil, and you know, like all these kinds of things. I just think it's good for everyone at some point to let go and realize that there's a real world out there. Exactly. You know, and it can really tie you up in knots.
It does. I want to take you back to, say, maybe 15 years ago. I think there's a lot of people in Australia that fall into a job because it's financial security and it's not really what they love and not their passion. And this was, I think, where you were about 15 years ago.
Yeah, 100% my experience.
Yeah.
So when I was at school, I've always been a writer. I love writing. I love words. I love telling stories. But equally, my family is a very foodie family. We love food. I mean, lots of families do. Cooking together, eating together, talking about the next meal when you haven't finished this one. You know, And I couldn't figure out how to marry the two together, because I would say I love food and they'd be like, oh, be a food technologist or be a chef. And I was like, no, I don't actually want to do those things. Oh, Jane's going to be a journalist, or Jane's going to be a writer. And I'm like, yeah, but I haven't found what I want to say yet, and I didn't feel like I had something specific to say. And so I went off and I did uni, and I did media at uni and loved it, and kind of ended up doing radio by accident because I was told I was good at it, and I ended up doing promotions in radio. And I did it for a long time, and I was burning out, because when you're young, you do those very high energy jobs. And I was getting to a point where I was like, I'm really, really not happy. And I used to read the food pages of the newspaper obsessively, like every weekend, what's the hottest restaurant? What's this chef doing? What's that chef doing? And I loved it, but I always felt that there were deeper stories that were sometimes missed. And this is one of my favorite stories. I was reading the newspaper one weekend, and I sort of rolled my eyes and sort of made a huffy kind of sound. And my partner, who is now my husband, he was like, what's going on there? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I just feel like there was more to that story. And I know that journalists are bound by column lengths and all those kinds of things. I get it. But I felt like there was more to the story. I was like, oh, I wish I could be doing that job and exploring those stories. And he looked at me point blank, not a trace of irony, nothing. He was like, why not? And I went, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's very sweet, darling. And he was like, no, somebody's doing that job. Why not you? And it was his faith in my ability to do it that made me go, hang on a second, maybe I could. And we sort of devised this plan of how I would change direction in my career. And it was a really scary time, because I did jump right off the deep end. I had a very secure job. I was making decent money. We had plans for the future. We wanted to get married. We wanted to have kids and all this kind of stuff. And I could have stayed in that job and been unhappy but very secure, and done a lot of really incredible stuff. I worked with incredible people, did lots of fun things. But with his support and somebody really believing in you, because you can believe in yourself all you want, but you're not going to necessarily push yourself, and he was like, no, we'll give it this time frame, and I think you should do it. Send some writing out, hunt for some work, see what happens, because I think you can do it, and somebody's doing it. It exists as a job. And so I went, oh, okay, sent some samples of writing off. I was picked up quite quickly, which was really, really nice. And then I had to make the very scary decision of leaving full-time work to be a freelance writer.
How did that make you feel?
I was terrified. I was so scared, and I would lie awake at night when when you're pitching for work and chasing invoices, which every freelancer knows is hard graft in itself. All that kind of stuff, and I would lie awake at like 2 o'clock in the morning thinking, is it ever going to be enough? Am I ever going to feel like I'm doing this right?
Yeah.
Because you're constantly chasing, especially in the early days. And I would lie there at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, oh my God, I've made the worst decision. I should have just stayed in the comfortable, safe zone. And there were a couple of years of really, really hard work where I had to, be my own boss, go and find the stories, do a lot of physical labour to go and collect all this information and stuff. But it paid off with the support of my partner. He was like, are you still happy? Are these still the stories you want to be telling? And I was like, yes. And that passion for telling those stories was, I think, the thing that carried me through, and his support. And now I'm doing what I do. I'm a food editor. I love what I do. I talk to chefs all day. I cook things for funny people on TV. I couldn't have ended up in a better position, but I had to make that really scary jump first, and it was terrifying. But I would say to anybody that's thinking about doing it, if you have someone to support you, because there are dark times, there are times when you think you've made a bad decision, but if you have someone that supports you and you think you can do it, go for it. Don't be the person that goes, what if, or coulda, woulda, shoulda kind of thing. And that was aside from him having huge belief in me, we just made this decision that we were going to be the people that took the leap, because they're the people that succeed. Yeah. You'll never get to do what you want to do unless you take that risk. And it was a big risk.
I think that's the one thing that stops a lot of people following their dreams is it's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of, what if I fail? It's the fear of, I've got no money, It's like, how do you...
We did it in a really pragmatic kind of way where, happily, he's a very pragmatic man, and he sort of went, well, we can sustain it for this long, or you can sustain it for this long, and then you'd have to get a real job. And so we went, okay, but we mapped it all out, and we went, I'm willing to give it this much time, energy, and finance, because you're leaving good money to potentially earn nothing. We'll give it this long, and then if it's not working, you've tried. And there's nothing bad about trying and not succeeding, because you've learned and
Do you find though that that's probably like my biggest thing is that fear of failure and the fear of what people are going to say if you don't. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like it's like, okay, I've left real estate to do what I am doing.
Because that's exactly what you did. Were you scared?
Yes, and I'm still scared that people, if I don't make this work, then people, I think it's that whole people will talk about you, or they'll, you know, like it's that negativity behind, oh, she failed at that.
But you know what else I learned in later years was no one cares. They really, like, you think they're talking about you, and again, this husband, baby, no one cares. No one's, you think they're looking at you, no one's looking at you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when we realise that we're not the centre of, like, we're the centre of our own universes, and we have to believe in ourselves, but nobody else is looking at you, nobody else is talking to you. They've all got their own problems that they're dealing with. And once you, because I did have that real fear, especially when I was in the thick of the hard yards, when I was really like, oh, I'm just never going to make enough money doing this, or my time is, I'm getting paid so little for all the time that I'm putting into this or whatever. I think once you realise that people will only respect you for trying, for pursuing your dream, they're not really going to judge you because they've got too much other stuff of their own going on. I think then I let go. I sort of went, well, if I have to go back to a full-time job, who's going to know? They'll just think that that's something that I'm doing, that I chose to do. They're not going to know.
Yeah.
And I'm in a full-time job now. I just happen to be doing what I wanted to do, which is fortunate, because I stopped freelancing in the end because that time of my life was over as well, and I had an opportunity to do what I wanted to full-time. And freelancing is great, but that period of my life was over.
Yeah. And then now the 9Honey food editor. How did that all come about?
So this is, again, another point of real fear in my life was one of the reasons I started freelancing in the first place was so that I could have children and continue to work, because I love what I do. I genuinely love it. And I would have gone crazy being at home with just children, because that's my nature. And so I wanted to keep working. But freelancing when children are very, very little was for me, I can't say for everyone, was for me, that was actually not too hard, because babies sleep if you're lucky. And you know, you've got windows of time to do things, and they don't demand as much attention as a toddler.
Yep.
And so once I hit the toddler stage with kids that needed attention, I didn't feel like when I was working at home that I was either giving my work enough attention or my children enough attention. So I felt like I was doing both things really poorly instead of one or both of them really, really well. And so we started thinking about looking for full-time work, but I was only in that stage of thinking about it. I didn't really want to go down that path. I wasn't there yet. I wasn't ready. Part of me felt like it would be a defeat because I was no longer a freelancer and in charge of my own world, you know, all those things. And the role of food editor at what was then just 9Honey didn't exist yet. It came up and I ended up in discussions about it with someone, and the opportunity was there. And again, husband was like, what? Why not?
Yeah.
And I was like, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I know we talked about it, but I was thinking like months down the track.
Years.
You know, like years and years. And again, having a supportive partner, it's not the answer to everything, but it certainly helps. And he said to me, well, why not give it a go? And if it doesn't work, you just pull the plug. Like it's not a bad thing. Give it a go. You don't want to be that person that didn't give it a go and let this incredible opportunity go. So it was actually slightly too early for me emotionally, but it was definitely the right thing for our family and, you know, for career progression and things like that. And again, I did the 2:00 in the morning thing. I lay in bed clutching my then 2-year-old, sleep, beautiful little thing. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be sending you to daycare. Am I making the right decision? But he was ready. You know, I couldn't give him the socialization at home that he needed. And it was about me holding on to something that I thought I needed, which was to be a freelancer and to be a working mum at home and to be all these things that other people
And I think
thought.
we brought up in society that, you know, the women do stay at home and they do look after the children until those children are ready to go to prep or grade 1.
Yeah.
So to have that decision process, I guess, thrown in.
I was kind of yanked out of my control. I was like, oh. But they went, well, this is this opportunity. The only way you can make it work is to do these other things. And I was like, and I felt like, am I a failure? Sending my child off to daycare. Just to be very clear, he absolutely thrived in that environment. And I almost feel like looking back on it, I was like, was I holding him back by like clutching onto him? He's just that kid that needs to be out and doing things.
And I think it is that. Like, I remember I've always been a working, like I have 2 children, but I've never really been the mum.
Yeah.
And I remember we put Ashton into daycare at 12 months because we were still running a business.
Did you feel judged for that?
I did a little, but I remember the first day him And I'm like, tears, opening the gate, and he's just walked, see him,
Off,
yep,
bye. It's like he didn't even exist. You're
I'm
like,
just come back.
You're like, you disloyal little so-and-so.
But, he loved, it's that whole social interaction with the other kids, and he loved it, and he thrived.
Yeah.
And he never looked back.
And again, you've got to do what's right for your family and your kids. And I think as women, we beat ourselves up so much because of this perceived idea of what we should be. And my mum was, was a super mum, was that sort of working at home, because she worked from home as well. She ran her own business. So that was the example that I'd been set as well. And I sort of felt like going into an office was almost a failure in a sense, when it really wasn't. It was just where our family needed to be at that time. And to be honest, and I know everybody's different, so I can only make the judgment for myself, but I am a much better mother when I have things of my own. When I go away and do something and get to be the Jane outside of being a mum, then when I'm home, I'm all mum. I'm not half here and half there until I start looking at my social media.
When she's reinstalled it.
Yeah, exactly. No. But then when I'm home, I'm mum, and I'm not trying to be freelance mum at home, writing and, fitting in 10 minutes writing here and there. So it was actually for the health of our family, and again, this is very personal to our situation, I'm a better mother when I go away, burn off the energy that I need to professionally, and then come back and can be,
so true,
mum at home.
You're
cooking cakes and wearing sweatpants, whatever it is,
Your biggest champion passed away recently, probably about 4 years ago now, with ovarian cancer. How did that impact?
Okay, so I'm going to get teary. I can't help it. So it's been 3.5, nearly 4 years since my mum passed away, and like my husband, she has been one of my biggest supporters. She just always believed. She was very much that mother that was like, if you put your mind to it, I believe you can do it. And she was one of the reasons I love to cook. She was a wonderful foodie mum, always exploring in the kitchen. And we just had this little saying between us was just be intrepid in the kitchen, just always explore. It doesn't matter if it goes wrong. Food goes wrong. Just,
add some more salt.
Try it again. If the ingredients are good, it doesn't look great, but it tastes amazing, And she was my biggest supporter, and she helped me with the transition of my career in terms of just believing in myself and all those kinds of things. But she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and we were given this horribly necessary timeline where they sort of say to you, it's different for everyone, but it might be 5 years. And for us, it was exactly 5 years from diagnosis to the end. And for a lot of that time, she had very, very good quality of life. So we were lucky. We were really, really lucky. But she was such a brave woman in that, can't help get teary about these things. In that time, I had 2 children, and she didn't once shy away from letting them see what she was going through. She thought it was important not to hide illness and struggles from children. She was like, they will grow up to be better people if they have just been exposed to this. Like, don't shove it in their face. Don't take them to see horrible things. But she was like, this is what our family's going through, and I love them, and I want to be as much a part of their life as I can. And they both just knew from a really early age what death was, and that they called her Nina because they couldn't say Nana. And they saw her right till the end. Like the day she passed away, she held them both before she passed away. Sorry, got to get a tissue.
Yeah, grab a tissue.
The hardest thing about that for me was obviously loved my mum, lost my mum, all that kind of stuff. But I actually lost her when I was a new mum. And we're a very talky family, in case you hadn't guessed. So we were lucky in that 5 years. We had a lot of closure. We got to say a lot of things that we wanted to say. But what I never got to say to her, because it didn't really occur to me until slightly after she was gone, was thank you for everything. Because you really don't know until you're living it yourself what a parent has given up and put aside and sacrificed for you and put up with. She used to joke that I was a terrible talker and that I never stopped talking. And it wasn't until my eldest started talking and never shut up from the second that he woke up till he fell asleep at night that I actually understood what she went through with me. And I just remember looking at the sky that day and going, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And thank you so much for never telling me to be quiet, for just letting me do what I needed to do. And if there was one thing that I could change about it, the whole process was she had such grace and humility, and she was so brave and all those things. And I wouldn't change my boys seeing that. What I would change is them not seeing me thank her. That's the only thing that I would change. I would say thank you to her, and I would say it very often. And I did thank her, but not as much as I want to now as a mother.
Yeah.
Where she was my biggest champion. She believed in me all the time, unconditionally, probably without good reason a lot of the time, but you know, now that I want to give that to my children, that was because of the example that she set. And she never once pushed me into anything I didn't want to do, but supported me in everything I did want to do.
Did she give you boys any words of wisdom?
The boys?
Yeah.
One thing she used to always say, and this is a well-known thing in our family, she was like, never hurt anyone on purpose. You'll do it by accident anyway. Don't do it on purpose. And so if they were punching each other or whatever it was, she was like, don't hurt them on purpose. It happens by accident. You don't need to do it, you know. And I love that as a life saying, and we've taken it into our own family. Sorry, I probably look terrible. I'm streaming over here. And I genuinely think that's a good way to live. Don't climb over people, don't hurt people, don't say nasty things, because you say things off the cuff and you don't even know that you've cut someone deeply. So I don't know, I just think I think they're good words of wisdom. My children know them. I say it to them all the time. Stop punching him! Yeah. You don't need to hurt him on purpose. You know, so yeah. I think that's a really beautiful way to live in the world. She was a very compassionate woman, my mum.
Do you find that the things that you do now in life, that you stop and think, what would my mum think? What would my mum say?
She's a great gauge. But if I don't know, I'll say, well, what would mum think?
Do you ever feel her?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Do you know when I feel her most? And this is getting into sort of a bit hocus pocus land, but that's, you know, each to their own. I feel her in sunsets because the evening she passed away, the sky was like a blazing sunset. Of purples and pinks, and they were her colours. She was a very purple, pink, floral, big flowers kind of person. And I was driving back to the hospital, and I knew. I looked at the sky, and I'm going to get all teary now. And this is a very personal story because people can believe whatever they like, but I believe I felt the moment she left. And I pulled up at the hospital, and my sister came in with me at the car, and she just looked at me, and I said, I already know. I already know. Because she said goodbye to me, and you can believe whatever you like about that, but that's what I felt. And I see her in every purple sunset now, all the time. But I feel her at other times as well. And I don't care if people think that's hocus pocus. It's, for me, that was a really terrible moment, but a beautiful moment. And I feel her in glorious sunsets all the time. And it's nice because it's a joyful memory. Very sad, but there's joy in that as well. That you know.
Do you think she'd be very proud of what you're doing now?
Do you know when I think she'd be proudest? This morning I did a segment on Today's Show doing make-ahead breakfasts to make life easier for busy families. And she used to love watching cooking segments or food segments on morning telly. And I have moments where I walk off set and I'm like, oh, she'd be so proud. Mum would have loved that. And it's a good judge of whether or not I'm making interesting, good content. Would Mum like it? Yeah, she would have loved it. I'm proud of that.
Where do you see yourself now then in 5 years, and where will we be on our TVs?
Look, do you know what? I love doing the TV part of this job, but more than anything, I love helping people feel comfortable with food. And the TV aspect of that is great fun, but for me, it is the biggest opportunity to remind people that food shouldn't be frightening. I think we have, and it would be easy to blame the media, but I don't believe it's solely the media's fault. There's a lot to do with society attitudes to working families and all this kind of stuff. But we're very divorced from our food now, and a lot of people have this thing that I call kitchen anxiety or food anxiety for so many reasons. Either they're so focused on eating healthy that they've forgotten to enjoy it, or they're so desperate to make food that's Instagram worthy that they've forgotten that it has to taste good and be edible. You know, people have this real fear that if they don't plate up something that can look good on MasterChef, that they're doing it wrong. And I'm a real believer that we all need to remember that the only thing food needs to do is nourish you at the end of the day. And sometimes that can be fried chicken. Sometimes it can be salad. Food shouldn't be frightening, and it should be accessible. And the only way to make it accessible is to make people want to play with food and to feel less anxious around it.
Do you think you've touched such a great point there? Because I think, you know, we do see, and again, I guess it all comes back to social media, is, you know, these fit dads, fit mums, you know, watching what they eat, telling you that you shouldn't put this into your system and that you should only, and then so we look at menus or we look at when
and you're
a grocery,
calculating.
And we're thinking, is this, you know, going to put on kilos or is this, you know, like, I just think we've lost the art of loving food.
And so much about food, self-regulation and everything comes down to whether or not you're enjoying yourself. Because if you can enjoy a couple of pieces of fried chicken and then go, I really enjoyed that, I was present, I was here in the moment, I had a great time, and then let it go and not sit there and eat the whole box or make yourself feel sick or then beat yourself up about eating it.
I've got to go for a 10K run tomorrow because I ate 2 pieces of pizza last night. Yeah.
It's all about balance because I believe in eating healthy, but I don't believe in eating healthy to the detriment of happiness.
Yep.
Like food should be joyful above anything else. It should be shared and it should be joyful. It shouldn't be hidden away in a cupboard feeling guilty and terrible about it. And I think when you find balance with those things and you learn that you can have your fast food, but you can also equally make an exceptional salad that not only is good for you, but tastes absolutely amazing. When you find that balance, I think you're more likely to find happiness. And I don't believe in restriction at all, which is, I exercise. That's the only thing that I can do because I eat a lot of fantastic.
Because you cook a lot of food.
I cook a lot of food. I eat a lot of food. I spend a time with a lot of amazing chefs who cook exceptional food, but you can't eat like that all the time and not pay a certain price.
Yeah.
The price that I pay is I just have to exercise. And I've just decided that I would rather enjoy good food and then have to exercise in a positive way, not beat myself up about it, find something that I love and do that rather than restrict myself. And I feel like that and actually this comes from my dad. Surprisingly, he wouldn't think of himself as a foodie person at all. He just let everyone else in the family do that. But he's just got this attitude of a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything, because as soon as you start cutting things out, you feel deprived and then you go off the deep end and you have too much of it. And I remember having this discussion with him when I was quite young, so I would have been like early teens. And he was like, even the best thing, even the best piece of food can be bad for you if it's the only thing you eat, Jane. And I was like, wow, that's and you know what? I think we were reading the book of Mahatma Gandhi's life, and he was going through a phase where he was only eating like peanut butter and grapes or something, and he got really sick. And people were like, dude, you're not taking care of yourself. And I was like, grapes? Can grapes make you sick? And I was quite young at the time. And we had this big discussion and he said to me then, he was like, you could eat salad all the time, but if it's the only thing you're eating, you're going to get sick. So I am very much against superfoods, by the way. I should just throw this in here now. I hate the idea of a superfood. I really dislike it because as far as I'm concerned, all foods are super if you know how to
use
treat
them properly.
them. And I love kale, don't get me wrong, but I don't think kale's any better for you than eating a different type of green. I don't think it's any more super than lettuce. You just have to have the variety in there. And I think people get fixated on this idea of a superfood that you should have it in everything. Have chia seed in everything, have kale in everything, have apple cider vinegar in everything. But it's not good for you if you have it in huge quantities. It's about balance.
What's
your making it taste good.
What's your favourite dish to cook in the home?
That's like asking me which child's my favourite child. It's almost impossible for me to say. I have some dishes that we come back to because we love them. I don't actually have a favourite food or a favourite recipe that I like to cook. I have types of food that I like to cook. And I like cooking lots of vegetable-rich things just because I think vegetables have the most extraordinary flavours that we often overlook because meat's a quick and easy fix. And I'm not a vegetarian and I'm not anti-meat. I just think that vegetables are sadly overlooked and they need champions in this world. And I love vegetables, and my husband happens to love vegetables as well. So we do a lot of roast vegetable salad type meals and things like that. Having said that, currently a staple in our house is oven-baked chicken nuggets that we make ourselves because the kids love them. And you can make an adult version at the same time that you're making a kid's version. So we actually made these last night, and they have like a panko, which is the Japanese breadcrumbs. And I've made these for videos for 9Honey a million times because everybody loves them.
So check them out on 9Honey.
But basically it's just chicken thigh, which is, great for anyone's diet, but particularly for kids because it's got lots of nutrients in it. And they need a bit of fat in their diet and things like that. So just cut up pieces of chicken nugget, dipped in some whisked egg, and then dipped into panko crumbs, which you can put some cheese into if you want to. We put some tasty cheese through it last night, just grated up. But Parmesan cheese works really well, or any kind of cheese that you can grate. Mix that through, and then we usually just put a little bit of smoked paprika through theirs, and that's it. But last night we put Sichuan pepper through the adult, so we had 2 bowls of crumbs. And
Don't get your bowls mixed up.
Don't get your bowls mixed up. And my husband and I love Sichuan pepper, and we're obsessed with it at the moment, putting it on everything. And last night we're like, let's put it in the nugget crumbs. It was so good. And you just 20 minutes in the oven and you're done. And
what do you have that with? Veggies?
Last night we had it just with raw vegetables last night because it was a very child-friendly meal aside from the spices. It was a very child-friendly meal last night. It was Sunday night. Everyone was tired. We had busy weekends with kids' birthday parties and stuff. So it was literally, this is fancy food writer. This is what she has for dinner. So the chicken nuggets, some chopped up cucumber, capsicum because the kids love that, and some cherry tomatoes because I sort of figure fresh stuff is good, and the kids had chips. I had chips too. And just some chips on the side because that's That's actually relatively balanced, and it was all finger food. The kids could eat it. There was no, I don't like it, which is, common with any child. I don't like it, and the push away of the plate. So we cook that quite a lot because it's easy.
Yeah.
And it's good, it's good, and it's got that comfort factor, but it's not deep fried, it's baked.
Yeah.
So, you can have your sneaky treats and make them everyday foods.
I think people find cooking can be like a little bit daunting, can't they? Like I know in our household, especially when you've got people like that work full time and you come home at 6 o'clock and then you go, oh, I've got to cook dinner.
Yeah.
And it's like we use HelloFresh.
I love Marley Spoon and I love HelloFresh and I love the dinner delivery services. Yep. And there is no shame, absolutely no shame in using those because, and I think this is the genius of those ideas, and I have said this many, many times before, is they let you do the fun bit, which is the cooking. They take away the mental load of planning, measuring,
going to the grocery store
that you don't know what to do with that are left over. Like it's all proportioned and it feeds 4 people.
There's no leftovers.
No leftovers, step by step, which some people don't like leftovers in their fridge because they just end up going to waste. I think that they are genius because they let people get comfortable in the kitchen again and do the fun bit, which is the cooking and the creating. Because cooking is highly creative if you just give yourself permission to sort of throw things around a bit. And I have no problem with people that use those dinner
it feels like a dirty word.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say it to anyone that'll listen to me because if it gives you the capacity to get back in the kitchen and experimenting, it's better than something out of a packet.
Yeah.
Because you still know what's going in it, you can modify it, you don't end up with lots of food waste. I think they're great. I really have so much respect for the people that started doing those. Because we used to get home delivered vegetable boxes. But even then, you still have to sort of look at it and decide what you're doing. And that is the hard part for most people, either the planning or getting to the shops and getting stuff. And we're also time poor. So take out the boring bits. I'm okay with that.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I could do this all day.
I know, you and I could just chat away. It's like, we've only a half an hour show, but it could be 3 hours by the time we're finished.
Thank you so much for having me. I think it's lovely.
And people can obviously check out all of your recipes, food on 9Honey.
Yep, 9honey.com.au. That's where we put all our food stuff and our videos and our chats with fabulous chefs and professionals in the food industry.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.